Both for coming today. General Thomas, thank you in particular for your service and all the men and women underneath your command. Over the last 8 years, there's been some tension between civilian and uniformed services over the number of flag officers that we've seen grow in all the services. This committee made an effort to reduce the number of flag officers last year. I've heard some generals and admirals, though, say that when the civilian command authorities reserve decision-making power to the highest levels, decision-making power that was once delegated to colonels and captains and, heaven forbid, even lieutenants on the battlefield in Iraq and Afghanistan in the last decade, then we should expect to see an increase in the number of flag officers. Have we begun to see in the last 4 months more delegation of operational decision-making authority back to where I suggest it belongs, in the hands of commanders who are on the front lines?
Senator, the short answer is yes. I'm a little bit humored by how you described the situation, in that my youngest son, who just gave up company command the 82nd, recently wrote to me and said, "Since when did we stop letting company commanders command companies?" And my response to him was, "Michael, that question has been asked since time immemorial. Where and how are you restricted right now?" But I think to your overall point, that while certain authorities had been elevated to very senior levels, I typically ask our force, "Are you empowered at the right level with the right ROE to do your job?" And I think it's trending in that direction.
As that delegation occurs, do you think we might see a concomitant decline in the number of flag officers in the Pentagon who need to make those decisions for our company and field grade officers in the field?
Senator, I would tell you truthfully, flag officers in the Pentagon are not empowered to make those decisions because they're not in the chain of command. So I think the right folks in the chain of command are being empowered to make the decisions that you certainly experienced from your time in combat. We are going back in that direction, positively.
On a related note, last month we deployed the massive ordnance air blast in Afghanistan for the first time. There was some media controversy about that, about why that bomb was deployed. At what decision would something like that be made?
Senator, I think as it was described, that decision was in General Nicholson's authority. So he had the capability, he had the discretion of decision making to employ it. I think we used it as an aerial denial weapon in an area that we'd been having a protracted fight with ISIS in the Khorasan in Nangarhar province in Afghanistan. So I think it was the right employment of a weapon system that avoided more extensive loss of life. I mentioned Sergeant Dialankar and our 2 Rangers who died out in that area recently. So again, that decision-making authority was at General Nicholson.
The commander in Afghanistan.
The commander on the
not the chairman or the Secretary of Defense or the National Security Advisor or the President?
No.
And that in deciding what kind of ordinance to employ, would you say that's a decision for commanders in the field to make?
I believe it is. Yeah.
And they don't need to get approval from anyone 8,000 miles away in Washington?
I think that could actually cause great risk to the force if it had to go back that way.
I hope all the rest of our bombs are overcoming the loss of their mother. Are they?
I think they're over their grieving.
Good. Another question I want to raise is the relationship between special operations forces and conventional forces. By definition, special operations forces are special. They do amazing things, but they're limited in numbers and focused in mission. Would you agree that you can't simply flood special operation forces and expect them to be a substitute for what our conventional forces or what a broader strategy would do?
Senator, agree, and more pragmatically, we don't have the forces, the special operations forces, to do that. So it's not a viable solution.
So special operations forces are a important complement to conventional forces and a broader strategy, but they cannot be a substitute for either.
Agree, Senator.
A related question, does that mean that if we expect to increase the number of special operations forces or the mission sets that we provide them or the operational tempo at which we deploy them, we will also need to see a concomitant increase in the number of conventional forces as well to support those missions?
I think that's a good assumption, Senator.
All right. Thank you.